Jean Edmonds. I'm aware of the upcoming court case concerning Jane Doe and more recently from your podcast with Michael Krieger. Do you think the courts are actually listening to ex-Scientologists bringing litigation? Do you feel more positive about the outcome? In a recent podcast with Marcy Hamilton, you guys talked about bringing abusers in all cults to justice by taking away the religious umbrella they hide under as a form of religious immunity, but prosecute the individual involved in the crime. Do you feel this could be the turning point for all litigations brought against Scientology and/or any other cult? If Scientology loses the case against Jane Doe, would this have an impact on their tax-exempt status? How would they talk their way out of that? Okay, great questions. Yes, I am optimistic and hopeful about the outcome of these Jane Doe series of cases, and I hope that that they do, obviously succeed in what they are trying to accomplish and show that there are criminal activities that occur within the Church of Scientology and by the Church of Scientology. Now, other than that, I'm not going to really talk about that case too much. As far as how do I feel about my talk with Marcy Hamilton and how she is approaching prosecution of, religious figures who are abusing their religious figurehood, so to speak, by through pedophilia, sexual assault, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm very, very hopeful about that, as we went over in the podcast, and I hope that I know it's going to take time, but the ball is rolling, so to speak, right? The snowball has started going down the hill. It's just a matter now of continuing that, not letting it stop, and I think we're going to see, 10 years, 15 years. I think it's not going to be a thing anymore to bring a religious figure into a courtroom on criminal charges for actual criminal acts. And I think we're now reached a point, or we're getting to that point where the courts themselves, the judges, the actual judges, who, let's face it, most of them are old timers, been around for a while, and their heads are back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So that's why it takes time for this kind of change to happen. But I think we're now seeing that the beginnings of what I think will be a common idea that, religious figures aren't any different from anybody else. They're the same, they're human, and they're subject to the same foibles and problems and issues and psychological problems that anybody else is. Just because they're a preacher, minister, mullah, whatever the word is for all the different religions, it doesn't matter. You're still a person underneath all that, and that means you're going to have all kinds of crazy ideas and urges and all kinds of other nonsense, and maybe you can't control yourself, and if so, then there you are in court. So yeah, I do think that's going to keep rolling out. Now, you also asked about could this be the turning point for all litigations against Scientology or other cults? I'm not going to be so bold as to say that. I think we still got a little ways to go on this, but I think like I said, I think everything's kind of moving in the right direction. And as far as the Jane Doe case having some kind of a impact on the tax exempt status, possibly, but I don't think directly it's going to. I'm saying possibly because I don't know all the legal ramifications and potentialities of how this case could roll out, or what other cases might be in the chain of lineup here that could maybe even be worse than the Jane Doe one. Like, who knows, right? What I do know is that Scientology is masterful at finding scapegoats. That is all they do all day long, if you think about it, right, in the Sea Org. And we already know from the Marty Rathbun case that the Church of Scientology as an entity will fall on the sword for David Miscavige. It will absolutely take responsibility for anything if it clears David Miscavige from blame or any kind of criminal prosecution, right? We know this is the case. That's what they did already. So if it were to come up that, if this Jane Doe lawsuit, for example, is successful and there are individuals in the church who are directly responsible for false imprisonment, kidnapping, etc., the charges that she's bringing, which are, again, it's a civil suit, right? So this isn't a criminal case, but she's still suing over these things. If it was shown that, who was responsible for this stuff, everybody between her and David Miscavige would take full responsibility for all of it and do whatever they needed to do, say whatever they needed to say to, free David Miscavige of any possibility of any guilt, right? And they will lie through their teeth for him. Unquestioningly, unthinkingly, that will happen. So that is how they would talk their way out of it, so to speak, because that's how David Miscavige avoids taking blame for anything and never has to be responsible for anything, is because he's always got somebody else under him to blame, right? That's how he operates. So that is the answer to that question. I hope that was informative.